Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, in the Big 12 on Saturday, there's a very interesting game with the Kansas Jayhawks traveling on the road at the Baylor Bears. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Kansas is 5-2 to start this season, and Lance Leipold has really turned them around because Kansas is one of the worst Power 5 programs in the country, but he has been playing really good football this season. They started out 5-0 with a win over Tennessee Tech 56-10, and then they won at West Virginia in overtime 55-42, and that was a really great win there. And then they won at Houston 48-30, then they beat Duke 35-27, and then they beat Iowa State 14-11. And after those 5 wins, they got into the top 25, and they were playing fantastic football. But now in their last 2 weeks, they did lose to TCU 38-31 on their own field, and that was a great game, but they just fell short. And Jalen Daniels, their starting quarterback, got hurt in this game. And then they lost at Oklahoma 52-42 in a game that their defense did not play well. They could not stop Dylan Gabriel, but their offense still put up 42 points. Now, quarterback Jalen Daniels is still questionable. I don't know if he's going to be able to play in this game or not. But quarterback Jason Bean has played admirably in his absence, and he had 265 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, and 41 rushing yards against Oklahoma. He's a dual threat. Jalen Daniels is a dual threat. They're very similar quarterbacks. Jalen Daniels might be a little bit better, but Jason Bean is very capable as well. Running back Devin Neal at 84 yards and a touchdown. He's a very solid running back for Kansas. Wide receiver Lawrence Arnold had 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tight end Mason Fairchild 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. And wide receiver Luke Grimm at 19 yards for Kansas against Oklahoma. And they need to get Luke Grimm the ball more because he's a fantastic wide receiver. But Lawrence Arnold and Mason Fairchild are great as well. So they do have 3 very, very great receivers. 1 in the tight end and 2 receivers for Kansas. Now on the defensive side of the ball, safety Kenny Logan Jr. 7 tackles and an interception. Linebacker Lorenzo McCaskill has 7 tackles, and defensive end Jeremy Robinson had 2 tackles for Kansas against Oklahoma. And again, Kansas defense has played pretty well this season, but the Oklahoma game they did get exposed, and they're going to have to clean that up if they're going to be able to go on the road and win at Baylor. Now, on the Baylor side, Dave Aranda has Baylor 3-3 this season. Dave Aranda is a fantastic head coach. He's really had Baylor playing fantastic football, but this season they've had some struggles, and they're 3-3. They did win against Albany 69-10 in Week 1, but then they lost at BYU in overtime 26-20. That was a tough loss. They almost won. They just could not get it done. Then they beat Texas State 42-7. That was a good win. Then they won at Iowa State 31-24. In their best win of the season. But then they've lost their last 2 games to Oklahoma State 36-25, and then they lost at West Virginia 43-40. And again, they made a lot of mistakes, and if they hadn't had those mistakes, they would have beaten West Virginia. Quarterback Blake Shapen had 326 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he had a key fumble in the West Virginia game that West Virginia picked up and ran it back for a touchdown, which really hurt them losing that game. And in that game, Blake Shapen also got hurt, and that's really hurting Baylor as well. He could play against Kansas, but we're not 100% sure if he's going to be able to play either, so both Kansas and Baylor have quarterback questions on whether they're going to be able to, their starting quarterbacks going to be able to play or not. Quarterback Kyron Drones at 95 yards, a touchdown, interception in Blake Shapen's absence against West Virginia. He's definitely a drop-off from Blake Shapen, but he is a capable quarterback. Running back Richard Reese at 57 yards, and running back Quaylon Jones at 44 yards and a touchdown. Both solid running backs for Baylor, and they ran pretty well against West Virginia. Wide receiver Gavin Holmes at 210 yards and a touchdown, and tight end Drake Dabney at 66 yards for Baylor against West Virginia. Both are fantastic receivers, and obviously one from the tight end position and one from the wide receiver position. Both Baylor and Kansas have great offenses when they're clicking. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Dylan Doyle at 5 tackles and an interception, and safety Al Walcott at 2 tackles for Baylor against West Virginia. Baylor's defense has been decent at times this season. They have given up some points in some games, but for the most part, they have been solid on defense, but they do need to improve if they're going to continue to win. So who do I think is going to win this game? This game has intrigue all over it because Kansas, coming into this season, has really shocked the world because they've been fantastic. They started out 5-0, but they have lost their last 2 games. And quarterback Jalen Daniels, if he's not able to play, will really hurt Kansas because even though Jason Bean is a really solid quarterback, Jalen Daniels does give him the higher upside. And on the Baylor side, a lot of people thought Baylor was going to be able to maybe win the Big 12 this year, but they have really struggled and gone 3-3. If Blake Shapen is not able to play for Baylor, they're going to struggle in this game. This game is at Baylor, and I think that is going to be a key factor in this game. Obviously, when two teams are very similar, the home field advantage sometimes is just enough to be the difference. But I think Baylor is going to win this game 35-31. I think Kansas can win this game, but especially if Blake Shapen is able to play, because it looks like he's more possibly going to be able to play than Jalen Daniels. If he is able to play, I think Baylor's going to have a better offense than Kansas just by a little bit. And I think Baylor's defense is playing a little bit better than Kansas recently, because Kansas defense has been slipping lately, especially in the Oklahoma game. And Baylor, even though they gave up 43 to West Virginia, that was also because of a fumble by Blake Shapen that scored a touchdown, and they made a lot of other mistakes in that West Virginia game. If Baylor can clean those things up, they will be able to beat Kansas, and they do play better at home. So I think Dave Aranda's Baylor team is going to win over Lance Leipold's Kansas team 35-31. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Baylor or Kansas is going to win this game and why, and I will see you next time.